All right, Walter. Enough with Walter. Wearing shorts today. It's a rarity that I show my legs on camera. I was always like, shorts on stage. I mean, I guess if it's an outdoor gig and it's a bajillion degrees out, but yeah. But actually, no, there are, I think probably in the 90s I was doing the grunge thing, so I think I did wear shorts on stage because that's what people were doing. But not usually now. I should have changed them. I forgot. Anyway, how's everybody doing today? Thank you for being here. A bunch of people here already, so thanks. Really hot day in New York. But hot day seems like it's kind of everywhere. So I want to say hi to everybody who is here as OSBB helping out as always. David Cromwell, Bello from France. Hello, everyone. California, we got Michael Cope, what's going on? Victor Beebe, Australia. Kurt Schaffenberg, Phil Jones, everybody. Michael Gilberto. Thanks for being here, guys. All right. Oh, Phil Jones. I keep on checking on the Guitar Breaks website, but no Jeff yet. Yeah. I'm going to be doing Guitar Breaks in November. The dates will be up soon. I had to send him some pictures. So we'll get that rolling. And as soon as it's, I'll let you guys know. Guitar Breaks will be doing it in Shropshire, England. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys, some of you guys there. I always love meeting everybody in person. That'll be a ton of fun. So I'll let you know. Also, yes, Angus Young can wear shorts on stage. But for me, I'm not a big shorts on stage guy. All right, so a few things we have, or I have, a flash sale, boom, on my SolarWinds Minor Triads course, and it's 55% off using the link over there. So if you guys want to get that, it's a great way to help out the channel. Special sale on that if you don't have that one already. And it ties into everything I'm talking about, of course, as always. And there's a link. It's in my YouTube freebies. It was for the video I did a few days ago, which is done very well, thank you. It's 10 things you need to know to improve your playing, or 10 things to know to help improve your playing. And if you go over there, there's some charts for what I'm talking about today. It says you have to sign up. It's free. It's YouTube freebies. Some of you guys already belong. Just go on over there and take a look at that little, you can see the charts that I'm going to pull up on the screen in just a minute. So I did my video on, what you need to know. So let me get this situated. Hold on. Lots of windows open so I can do this properly. All right. So there we go. Okay. So I did a list of 10, and apparently I left out number 8. So as you can see here, go right to number 8. There is no number 8. Go straight to number 9. Because I wrote them out, and I actually ended up putting 2 into 1, but we'll talk about that. All right. So people ask me all the time, what do I need to work on? What are important things? There's so many things to work on in guitar, as we well know, and it can be completely overwhelming. And so for me, what I've discovered or worked with people, and I find that people don't know, but they think they know. So the first thing is the notes on each string. Now, a lot of people have asked me in the chat or the comments on that video, what's a great way to memorize the notes on the string? So the first thing I would say, and I'll talk a little bit about it in the video, but the main thing I would say is do your one string at a time and work on your natural notes. So if we're going to do the natural notes, the key of C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, we're going to start off on our lowest note that we can get on that string. So that's on our low string. So that's E, right? So E to F is a half step, F to G, G to A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E. And then I would, go as high as you want, but say them as you play them. So maybe if you're kind of like, oh, this is a lot, just go up to the 12th fret because everything repeats the octave above on the 12th fret. Get a little knee in the picture, a little knee. So then I'm going to go back down and I'm going to say them out loud. And somebody actually did they wrote it, was it like, what spell going backwards? I totally forgot what it was, but it was kind of funny. So E, D, C, E, A, G, F, E. And then we have both strings, a high E string and a low E string. Same notes. So it's 2 strings for the price of 1, which is really cool. And then I would start to just take 1 string a day and work on each string. We get to what I often call the mystery zone around here. We're like, what is that? So very often I find if, look for markers, right? So here's my 12th fret. So that's A, the guitar starts over again. So I want to memorize my half steps and whole steps in the key of C major. It's pretty simple to remember. A half step between B and C and E and F. Everything else is 2 adjacent notes is a whole step. So if I know that this is A, because I started over, I don't have to go A, B, C, D, E, F, that's a G. I can think about, well, there's my A, and I'm going to move down a whole step. So there's these little shortcut things that you could start to work on, but 1 string at a time is really key. If you try to tackle the whole fingerboard, I don't know. I feel like that's really going to mess you up, and you're going to lose, sight of what you're trying to do, Hold on, let me close this window here. I got too many windows open. All right. So that's the first thing. And so next, after that, people often ask, well, how do I continue to do this? The thing that I think is really helpful is to maybe create your own flashcards, or very simply, which I should have added here, I just went on ChatGPT and said, make 10 lines of random 12 notes, or the key of C major in random notes. So it'd say maybe like, oh, sorry, we'll get to that in a second. Hold on. So the thing I would want to do next is one string at a time, right? So, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Then back down. A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. Some of you guys may know this and think like, oh, this is kind of dull, but I found fairly consistently with students across the board since my, 35 years of teaching guitar that this is the big thing for a lot of people. You think you know it until I say to everybody, okay, just play me a B flat on the A string. And they're like, you know what I mean? Like suddenly there's this, or over here there's that pause. Or you're thinking like, well, B flat, there's the octave. Well, okay, there's A, B flat. Like you're having to think about it. You want to get to the point where you're pretty solid. So if you remember where your natural notes are, it's fairly simple to make something a sharp or a flat. We call it an accidental. So a sharp, we're going to raise the note up a half step, or flat, we're going to lower it a half step. So I think the most difficult thing to do is to learn every single one of those notes, like, you know, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G flat, A, G sharp, A flat, A. Forget it. It's just too much. So if you start to think, well, that's A, okay, well, there's A flat, right? So that was, I think, a very, very important way to do it. So the next thing I will do, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help you, happy to answer the questions. So the next thing I would do with this is, this is where like that random note thing for the key of C. So let's just say I've chosen F. F comes up. So with no pressure on myself, I'm going to go through all my Fs in each string. F, 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 and F. So if it takes me 10 minutes to do that, then it takes you 10 minutes to do that. There's no rush. There's nobody, you know, it takes time to learn this stuff. It's not easy. So the next one, let's say you're going to, stick the key of C, B. Okay, so B, 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 same string, right? B. And then back down. So I'm going to take my time. I'm just playing it kind of fast just to prove the point. That was the way to do it. Then you start thinking about your sharps or flats. So you can use something like ChatGPT to create a way to generate all of those notes on a piece of paper, which I think is really kind of helpful. That was really helpful to me when I'm teaching this stuff, because then I don't have to sit there. It just randomly goes through them. So you just start to randomly go through those notes. I think that's a great way to do it. Then there's the octave thing, which I think we all kind of know. So there's A, and then there's A, and there's my D, and there's my D right there, you know. That's cool too. Any way that gets you there is cool. But we want to get to the point where we're not going to point A to B to get to point C. We just want to know, you know, that's C, that's C, that's C, that's C, that's C, and that's C. We just want to know that. And it will take time, but you can do it. You know, it's not that hard. It's just memorization, and it's just putting in the time. I have found a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today is, I think people's fear of these things is more psychological than anything. Like, oh man, I've always had a hard time doing it. I can't do that. It's like me, like, oh man, I understand, because when my son was talking about his math class, whatever he was taking, his AP, he just graduated high school yesterday. And he starts talking about binomials, and he starts talking, and all I hear is, like I hear a dial tone in my head. And he starts talking about it, because math has always been an issue for me. And he's like, oh, you remember this from school? I'm like, No, I have no recollection at all. So sometimes I do understand how theory can start to feel that way. But if you think about theory, is not as complicated. That theory is more like memorizing your addition and subtraction. It's pretty simple, especially the base level theory is very, very simple. And then people always freak me out. Oh, you're a good musician. You should be good at math. I'm like, what? Maybe it's the same side of the brain. It hasn't worked that way for me. So just put that, like I think a lot of times this is a psychological barrier for a lot of people. So just do one string at a time, Okay. So I see some questions popping up. I'll get to those in a sec. So as I go through those, one string at a time, one day, And if it takes you 2 months to learn this stuff, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. There's no quiz tomorrow. You're not going to fail a class or anything like that. But it helps a lot. Which brings me to number 2. Know your E and A form bar chords. Your regular root on the 6-string bar chords. Right? And then the root is on the 6th string. So if you know that this is G, there's your G major bar chord. Now, I know this is pretty rudimentary, but I have found very common that people will say, well, let's play an F sharp minor chord on the 5th string. And people are like, then suddenly that's where everything falls to the ground. So you want to go right up there. You're going to know that that's your F, there's F sharp, and that's a minor fingering. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on inside your chords. Am I lowering my thirds? Don't worry about any of that stuff yet. That's next on the list. And if you, on my site, there's the Arpeggios Unlocked, the free ebook and mini course. Just go get that. If you have not done that, it's free. And it dives really deep into this. And I put it on there for free for a bunch of reasons. One, thank you for always being here. That's the main thing. And also, in a lot of my courses, I might talk about a chord spelling, and instead of starting back from ground zero in each course, if you're unclear about this chord spelling, whatever, go over to this reference page that will help you work through that. So it made my life easier too, so I don't have to reteach this with every course because I want the courses to be complete, but sometimes you don't want to get into that situation of having to teach the same thing in each course. All right, blah blah blah. So, okay, so there's the root on the 5th string, root on the 6th string. So this is on the page, and let me just zip over to this here. I just wrote these ones right here. This is a harmonized major scale in C major. You want to learn this, so like C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, and C major 7. So the ones I wrote out. And you want to know those chord shapes and those fingerings anywhere. So if I start here, it's going to be E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, D minor 7 flat 5, C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7. Those are the chord shapes that you, at the end of the day, those are the ones you really, really need to know how to play. Trust me. Now, in rock and roll, you might not be playing major 7s that much or minor 7 flat 5s, but they do occur. They definitely do occur. And, you play guitar, you should know this stuff, right? Those are the main chords. So what I've put here on that page that you can download, this is super important. This is going to jump me to something right over here. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Right, so learn chord spellings, triad and 7th chords, okay? That's number 7, and kind of number 5 and 6, excuse me. So, if you do anything, diatonic harmonized scale in C major chord spellings, memorize these. C major 7, C, E, G, B. D minor 7s, D, F, A, C. Just memorize this. And then when you go over to my Arpeggios Unlocked free course, it's right over there, you can see that C major 7 is root 3, 5, 7. So if I know C major 7 is C, E, G, B, if I want to make it C dominant 7th, all I do is flat my 7, so I'd make it C, E, G, B flat. C minor 7 is C, E flat, G, B flat. So if you start to memorize the base spellings, this is what helped me as opposed to memorizing how to spell all these different chords. If I know that what I should have put here, just go to the free thing, it's all there. C, E, G, B flat is C dominant 7. So a major 7th chord is root 3, 5, 7. Which is right here. C, E, G, B. We're just stacking them on top. If I want to make it C minor 7, I would have to lower the 3rd and the flat 7. So these are formulas that you can memorize how to spell. But if I know these, then I know in my key of C major, D minor 7 is D, F, A, C. Okay, that's root flat 3, root flat 3, 5, flat 7. So if I want to make that C dominant 7, which is root 3, flat 7, I just raise the F up a half step. I know I'm fire hosing this. It's a lot to go to. It's all in the free course. Your arpeggios unlocked. Just go over there and I go through how you could work all this stuff. But this was the first thing I memorized. C major 7, C, E, G, B. Okay, D minor 7 is D, F, A, C. E minor 7 is E, G, B, D. So I know these base spellings because E minor 7 is E, G, B, D. E major 7 is E, G sharp, B, D sharp. It's still the same notes. I'm going to change some of them, but I got to start somewhere. E flat major 7 is E flat, G, B flat, D flat. It's still E, G, B, D, right? Of flats or sharps that I need to add to them. But if I still know the basic building block of an E minor 7 chord, whether it's E minor 7, E major 7, E major 7 sharp 5, E minor 7 flat 5, I know it's some sort of E, G, B, and D. That helped a lot because then I wasn't trying to memorize every single chord out there at once. Just start in right on these 7 chords that are contained in the key of C major. And I think that, that was really helpful to me and super helpful to all my students. Really, really made it much easier to do. All right, so I'm sure people are like checking out, like, I can't follow him. He's just throwing out numbers. Which brought me to my little short I put out as part of my video of the anti-intellectual thing. It's always really important to know these things. It's not hard. It just takes time. That's all. Putting it to use is hard. That's difficult. Memorizing this stuff I don't think is that hard. But being able to know them is very, very difficult. All right, let me go through this and I'll get to the questions. So if I run through all this and I'll get to the questions. And I'll swing back for that. Where's my previews? Okay. All right, so what's next on my list? Okay, know how to read a basic chord chart. Super, super important. My total recommendation, as I mentioned on the video, is if you could learn like a jazz tune, Blue Bossa, Autumn Leaves. Whether you're a jazz fan or not is not important. It's just knowing how to read a chord chart. And then you will come across chords like, all right, come on, C major 7, D minor 7. You'll come across these chords. So that's when you're going to use them. So basic chord chart kind of looking like this. How many beats are in each measure, how the chord comes along. I'm not talking about reading music notes. I can read music. I'm okay at it. I'm not great at it. That's tough. That's man hours. It's just you sitting there practicing that thing every day. So my friends who are really good sight readers have put a lot of effort into that. I have not put a lot of effort into my sight reading. It's good, but it's not great. Like if you put something in front of me that had a bunch of notes, I'd be like, can I come back to you on that? If it's fairly simple, I can read it, but I try to avoid that. But I can read a chord chart really, really easily. Of course, everything is online. I'd have to upload some, but you know what I mean by a chord chart. Just 4 bars of D, 4 bars of C, something very, very simple. That's something definitely important to do. All right, so now learn your 5 pentatonic scales. Just learn all those 5 fingerings. If you're uncomfortable with any one of them, spend certain time in that position, just using that one position. As I said in the video, if you're playing an A minor, just work on positioning number 2. Spend a few days just soloing and experimenting, which is number 10. Practice being creative in fingering number 2. Act like none of the other positions matter or exist. And that was really helpful to me because they're all just the same notes, but in different places on the fingerboard. A minor pentatonic or C major pentatonic is A, C, D, E, and G. We're just playing A, C, D, and G in different parts of the neck. But since it's on a different part of the fingerboard, the fingering lays differently, and certain things become easier in certain positions that would be stupidly difficult in other positions. Or you could find the same lick in two positions, which is really cool. One of the things that they had us do in college all the time was you'd learn a lick, and they want you to learn it in 5 different positions, or and in all 12 keys and all that kind of crazy stuff. Now, that's really cool, but don't forget some things in the guitar just work in one position. That lick is that. It works there. In any other position, it just doesn't fall well. You could try it, but some of these bends, that D bend, just that's a terrible, just doesn't feel good there. It feels perfect and easy right there. So spend some time in each pentatonic scale, and there's always something really cool to learn in them. All right. Learn your triads and their inversions. Right? So we're learning how to spell the chords. We're learning how to play our major triads and their inversions. And your minor triads, which I have my free course over there, of course. Is that link working, by the way, guys? Just let me know. I can bring it up again. It says secure. Let me just double check something. But learning your triads is going to be super important. So let me get this. I think I might have messed up. Hold on. There we go. God, so annoying. It's my fault. BB, you're right. Hold on. Can't change as well it's going, but here is the link for all the info I'm talking about today. Hold on one sec. There we go, guys. Sometimes when I upload it, when I copy the link and I'm in the admin file, so here we go. All right, it got to the course. Okay, great. There's another link if it didn't, so thanks. Okay, learn your triads and your inversions. And like I said, I've got my course on sale for free. Not on sale, 50% off, 55% off on the soloing with minor triads. And then learn the chord spellings, which brings me back to earlier. C major, C, E, G. Learn them in the key of G major, or the key of C major first. It's the easiest way to do it. And then you start to take it from there and change the notes you need to establish the other chord. When I started learning my triads, I thought I knew them when I grew up playing, and I knew triads and arpeggios as fingerings, like A minor. I've kind of talked about it before, like this, playing it fast, but I didn't really see it as A, C, E. These cool inversions that I could add in. Like that. That's an A minor triad. It's a great sound. Right, all these cool inversions that are so incredibly useful when you're playing. All right, and as we continue to go through, repertoire. Learn as many songs as you possibly can. No song is too easy, and some songs are, on that note, some songs are too difficult if you're not there yet. Like, I don't recommend you just dive in trying to learn how to play Eruption or something. That's like trying to lift a bench 300 pounds, or deadlift 300 pounds. You go over and go, okay, yeah, I'll get better at it at some point. It doesn't work that way. So start simply, but also learning very, very simple tunes is important because you're learning how to play the guitar. I mentioned, I think in the video, like Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones. Great tune, very simple, 4 chords, cowboy chords. But yeah, play it like the way Keith did. It's with swagger and vibe, and know how to play the song from top to bottom. I know this rings true for a lot of people. Being able to play a song from start to finish, not just know a little piece of it. That was a big problem for me. Across the board with my students, they'll know sections of tunes. They won't know the whole thing. So very, really important thing. And then if you want to go on a gig, you just start to know tunes. You're hanging out with people, you start playing tunes. It's great. And if you're talking about your general audience, if you can play a 3-chord tune, it sounds like the song, people think you're the best. And that's really, at the end of the day, to use that cliche twice, that's what it's all about, right? Being able to get through a tune and play a tune. It's not about ripping and shredding and all that stuff. It's just being able to play some songs. That's really, really important. And it's fun. It builds up your skills. It builds up your time, builds up your feel. You got to sound like the record. And it's satisfying. You just have another list of songs that add a song to the list of things that you can play. Number 8, there is no number 8. Go straight to number 9. Number 9. Yeah, I left out number 8, which is funny in my video. But it was I put 2 for 1, and I meant to not. I was just kind of on a roll with that video and didn't edit it right. I was saying learn how to spell your 7th chords. That would have been. Okay, now focus on your technique. This is one thing that I wish I had done when I was much younger. And that's literally, I just look at my hands. If I want to work on something like a C major 7th arpeggio. What is going, if I'm playing it and it's like, I'm stumbling, it's usually a technical issue. And very often, whether it's a blues lick or a blues rock lick or anything, one of the biggest issues that you'll come across is you're just doing it wrong. Sometimes you might look and your right hand and you're putting like 3 or 4 down picks in a row, right? And you're like, oh, that's why. Or 3 up picks. You're doing something really weird. And that can really, really mess up how smoothly you play the lick. So it's really important. So we always focus very much on the left hand, which is important because fingerings are big to think about the proper fingering, what's going to work best for you. Do I want to use my pinky? Do I want to use my 3rd finger? All these things. But I find a lot of people overlook at looking at their right hand. So if I look at my right hand, as I go through one of these arpeggios, right, I'm going to start to focus in on it, not so much poorly today, and I can just kind of meditate on how that hand works. And that first just made it easier. You're solving some of the problems, you're just focusing in on that one little spot, and then suddenly that lick starts to happen, that phrase starts to come together. So it's practicing with more intent and practicing, smartly. Practicing with intent. I'm going to work on this thing, I'm going to concentrate on this hand. Whether it's a lick, how can I work through this lick? What's wrong? Why am I flubbing it? Slow down. And very often it's you're fingering it strangely or you're picking it incorrectly. And you want to work out some of those issues. I find that to be really, 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 really important. Okay. And then I'll get to your questions. So the last one is practice being creative. Man, I wish I'd worked on that when I was younger. That all my favorite players were like the most creative guys, Guitar became very much competitive for me, going to music school and all those things and, gunslinger stuff. And it wasn't not competitive and fun, but my point is if I spent more time on me than trying to sound like somebody else or learning a solo note for note and thinking, oh, that's just a solo note for note, that's what I should be playing. And more time going, okay, learn that solo. Now let me mess around with some of those ideas and have fun. Or let me put on, an overdrive pedal and some delay and some reverb and just mess around with the pentatonic scale and practice not judging what it is you're doing and just kind of get lost in it and have fun. I found those things were easier to do when you're younger. I think as we get older, we start to get a little more judgy about what it is we do because nobody wants to stink at something. So I often have to do this as well. I have to turn off the side of my brain that's the teacher, making courses, making videos, the income, and going, oh, okay. Why did I pick up the guitar in the first place? Because it's the coolest freaking thing in the world. And working on writing songs, working on ideas, working on just soloing over things that I want to get better at, and working on being creative. And I mentioned in the video, there's a great book by John Cleese from Monty Python. I highly recommend you get the audio book because, he reads it in his voice, which is just the best. And he talks about you need to put aside hours to be creative. So I don't always do this, and I'm trying to do it more. And sometimes you feel like it's easy when you're John Cleese and and you're wealthy and you can do that. But yeah, I mean, if I want to write songs for a new record, which I would like to do, or preparing for this tour that I have, I need to set aside time to prepare for the tour, get new songs worked up, feel confident with that, experiment with them, be really prepared. And you have to set aside the time to do that. And if I'm talking about writing songs or just trying to find new things on the instrument, I have to set aside the time to do that and be prepared for nothing to come out. That's good. And if you take the time and you stick with it, you're going to come up with something eventually. Is it going to be great? Maybe, maybe not. But you got to weed through those ideas. And if you listen to anyone like the real craft songwriters, like Paul McCartney says he sits down every day to write something, and most of it's not good. And Billy Joel talks about that. And pretty much everybody who is prolific does that. They just write and write and write, make it part of their schedule, part of their life. Very difficult to do if you're working a job and have a family, I understand. But try to find the time to do that. Okay, so that's hopefully it. So let me get to some of the questions. And let me go over here. All right. Thanks once again for everybody being here. Let's go. I saw some questions floating up here. So let's go over any questions you have. Please put them, obviously, with a question mark ahead of time. And let me see. Number 8 is very zen. Yes. Yeah. Pretty funny. Thanks. BVC, I get the octaves across the board. Memorizing the fingerings with the octaves, that's very, very helpful as well. S.C. Nesbitt, creativity is tough for me. People who know just 3 chords can write a lot of songs. Me, not so much. Okay, the 3-chord thing is they can write a lot of songs, but they're thinking about melody, right? Think about, this could be a million things. Fox on the Run, right? Could be a million songs. It's the melody that makes that different. So if you maybe lay down those 3 chords in a way and then think about what the melody is, because sometimes 3 chords are just going to be 3 chords. But if you look at, AC/DC, who I love, and Creedence Clearwater Revival, everything is very guitar cowboy chordy. Pink Floyd, it's very cowboy chord for the most part. Yet it's the vocal melody. So if you think about writing a melody over those, loop the chords and maybe what you think is cool, and then try to write a melody. So you see what I'm getting at? So sometimes it's not the chords, it's the vocal melody. Giant Torture. Tal Wolkenfeld said she would work them out on her head throughout the day. Oh yeah, I remember in the subway up in Boston when I went to school, I would think, okay, each fret, I'm just going to do flats. F, B flat, E flat, D, sorry, no, what am I doing yet? A flat, C, F, go up fret, okay, G flat, D flat, A, E, B, G flat, right? So I would think about it this way as well. So I would go in my mind, run through all the notes that way. Also, you could just print out, if you, and I'm big on still writing things out. So you have print out the piece of paper with all the fingerboards, very easy to find online, and just write them in. That's, I think, helpful. But yeah, I would memorize it as well. But that one was a real butt kicker, that one, going through that way, and then doing sharps or just flats. All right. You've done it to get to sleep too, of course. All right. Will you please show me how to do the 7ths on the A string? 1 is just fine. The 7ths. Oh yeah, it just click on the link there. It's right there. Yeah, they're right there. So the video, click on the link and they're written out right there. Sam Samos, thank you so much for congratulations on my son graduating high school. I'm really psyched, yeah. This is Giant Torture. Is it better to know them numerically in relation to the note or both? Both. Right now, I would say just memorize the straight on notes. But when you're rendering the chord, if you're hearing it against something, it's important to know if I hear if I'm thinking an E bass note and I play a G, that's the flat third. It's also a G. So I would try to hear it as a G and a flat third. So I start to memorize the sound of a flat third. That's a little bit further down the line, but I would say ultimately both. You want to know the intervallic sound And then you also want to know the note name. Both are really super, super important to have a handle on. All right, let's see what else we got here. Angus, preach. Woo! Having dinner with Angus Clark later. Jason Laughlin and Dave Hill are all meeting for some food. Yeah, that'll be fun. Guitar hang. All right. Right, Angus makes a great point. Guitar is a very difficult sight reading instrument because there are so many choices. You can play the same note on 2 or 3 different places, for sure. Right? So you're saying like there's F, there's F, there's F, and that's all going to the same exact pitch. So you could read that in 5 different places, or, you know, that's what makes it so difficult to read on. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on practicing to a drone note? Oh, I do that all the time too. So what I would do, the drone, is say, I'll go with my open A string. A minor is spelled A-C-E. So I might go A-C-E-A. How I'd normally do that is either I'd have a keyboard, I'd hold the note, or I would do a loop and just play an A minor. I don't have my loop hooked up right now. And I would just think about the notes and play them against the chord or the note. So that C is a flat third. That's my 5. That's my root. Here's my flat 7. So when I start to hear that, you start to recognize the flat third as its own sound. So the drone is really, really a great thing. And thank you for bringing that up. Lots of stuff to think about. The drone works great. Yeah, I use it all the time. And very often I'll just put even like a drum loop on too, maybe, and have like a drone and just kind of work on these things so I can practice being musical with them. So one thing, yes, when I'm practicing anything, scales, arpeggios, or anything, I'm always trying to have it sound good. Here's my A minor. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not kind of yelling with the guitar. I'm trying to make my A minor triad. Right? Trying to always make something musical as I play it. If I'm practicing a C major scale. Right, so I'm kind of have hopefully like a flow to it. Hopefully musically it sounds good. I'm going to be thinking about my tone, how am I picking it, you know, all those kind of things like that. Really, I'm always thinking about playing musically because those are the people who sound the best, right? You're playing music. I remember at college, you know, nobody, I mean, some teachers talked about it, but I didn't hear it at that point. I was so involved. I had my head up my own butt so far in trying to, you know, learn the instrument, you know, in your early 20s and your late teens, that it's really easy to kind of fall into that technique trap entirely and not think about music or tone or, you know, why does Eric Johnson sound so good? He's got great sounding hands, like John Mayer. Like, I'm not influenced by John Mayer whatsoever because I'm too old. The guy sounds great though, right? He's a great guitar player. And what do I like most about his guitar playing is he just sounds great. He's got great sounding hands. And so you need to practice that. And so when you're playing a scale or chords or chord progression, work on that. Think about how, you know, does this sound good? Okay. I enjoyed the video playing a number of times trying to find number 8. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Jason Carter's late, but he has a note. Pretty funny. Hold on. Any more questions over here? What are some of the greatest ear training exercises you know? Wow, man, there's a lot. The main one, I think what's really important is just identifying intervals. That was pretty important for me. Like what's a major third, minor third. And all the things you can really kind of put those together with like your old NBC thing if you're from the States. Right, so that's a root. We're going to look at a root, 6, 4. So, I start to hear that in a certain way. A third, half step. Or that, right? Jaws, right? Yeah, whatever that was. Things from Star Trek, like the fight theme. But I remember what the interval was. So when I hear it, I'll go, oh, that's it. Here Come the Bride, all these things, Star Wars, these themes, little melodic ideas that you start to equate with maybe something else. And then I start to hear them. And then eventually they become colors. And when people say colors, they just become sounds. I know that's a 10th or a minor third. You start to know that sound as that. And I can sometimes hear those things. I don't have perfect pitch, but I'll hear them. I'll know what they are, and I'll have a relative pitch. I'm like, I think that's in C. Usually, if it's on guitar, I'm pretty good because I know the guitar really well. If it's on like a horn or piano, sometimes I'm not in the right key. I might hear it as, might be an E, and I might think it's in D or something like that. I'm not great with other instruments other than the guitar. So that's a really good way to just ear training is to start off by identifying intervals. Lamar Brewster, I think it helps to play with other people whenever possible. Yeah, absolutely. Always try to play with other people. It's really, really great. I heard Casey and the Sunshine Band, Never Get Up. Yeah, anything. You might hear someone go, oh, that's from that, I know that. Where is Mr. Softy? I have the window closed today and the air conditioning on. So he was there before. You just didn't hear him. Do you play by ear also? Now, I'm trying to think about what that means. Play by ear. Well, my ear will guide me very often. And I figure things out by ear, but it's difficult to unlearn what I know. So if I know I'm in a certain key, my hands, I've just been playing long enough that my hands will go to that thing, probably. So my ear will guide me, but I always feel very strongly about, if you know the names of the notes, you will know the answer and you don't have to rely on your ear to do it. Somebody put a really cool quote in one of my last thing. He's talking about playing by feel. I had that little tirade of the anti-intellectual thing that comes across a lot of guitar players, like nobody ever talks about the modes in any professional situation I'm in. Nobody ever mentions it. I'm like, yeah, because you're all professionals. Why would a professional mention it to another professional? That's, a plumber doesn't say, I think you need to use this, or, a nuclear physicist is not going to explain to another nuclear, you assume that they know these things. So, he's talking about his friend who plays by feel. He feels his way. And he goes, I play with feeling. I don't play by feel. I like that. That was really kind of cool because that's true. I want to play with feel and feeling, but I'm not going to look for things. I'm not going to try to feel my way through what the proper note is. So, I'm not sure what play by ear is a difficult thing, but the way I interpret it is, I learned that by ear is I learned something from a record, I put it on and then figured it out. To me, that's playing by ear. Or somebody will play something and I know what they're playing just because I've practiced it enough, All right. Dave Hill makes me laugh every day. He was on Painting Baseballs Black today. Yeah, it's funny. He's awesome. Yeah, he's great. So we're having dinner with Dave tonight. Should be fun. Advice on chord tone targeting. Yeah. Just get my courses. A minor, ACE. or A minor 7, A, C, E, G. So I'm just going to play that chord. And just concentrate on hitting those notes. Now, if you want to focus in on that on a chord change, take 2 chords and target the chord change between the 2. I was kind of half joking, my latest course on melodic soloing, I talk about that in great detail. It's kind of deep to go into it here, but yeah, always the strongest melodies are going to be built off of chord tones. So you lay down a chord progression and you start to target the chord tones. That's sort of the simplest way I could say it. All right. Yeah, okay, so Phil, right, you didn't mention ear training, interval recognition on your list. Yeah, it's definitely on my list, for sure. Not, it didn't put on this list, but yeah, it's on a list. This is Jason Kerr. Love these tuition-based live streams, a gold mine of knowledge. Thanks. Do I scat? Yeah, I mean, I will often, if I can't think of anything cool to play on a song, I will put the guitar down and just try to sing what it is. What I want, sing a solo. And yeah, oftentimes when I'm playing, I'll try to sing it in my head or vocalize it. It's not going to be really good. I mean, it's not going to be George Benson level, but yeah, I'll sometimes do that. I don't do it on gigs because I don't really love when anybody other than like kind of George Benson does, but yeah, I try to, what's coming out of my fingers is hopefully what's going on in my head. So I'll practice that. Hey, Matt Gibson, great list, Jeff. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Here we go. This is Jessica. A big mistake I make and still do is trying to learn too much at once, and it has a very negative effect. Yeah, I definitely want to make that super clear. And you guys and I talk about this stuff all the time. I'm where I'm at the guitar, whatever that means, by just a lot of hard work. It's just hard work. I don't think I have I think I have a talent for the instrument, but I didn't pick it up. I wasn't a natural when I picked it up. Nothing seemed super easy. I just worked through it, really just put in the time. And it takes a while to memorize this stuff. And then, as I said very early on, once you know this stuff, like, okay, I know an E minor 7th arpeggio, then making it work musically, that's the hard stuff in my mind. That's the thing that really requires the work. Like knowing your arpeggio gets you to, first base, right? Or up to bat. Well, more first base. Let's go with that. So it's really, really using an arpeggio well in a musical way. That's hard. And you learn other people's solos and take your time. David Deere Parker, what's up, man? There's an amazing performance with Keith Urban and John Mayer performing at the 2010 CMJ Crossroads concert. That's incredible. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, he's a great guitar player. I just was saying, people are like, oh, you listen to John Mayer? I'm like, not really. It's because he's younger than me. You know how it is. Chuck Keller, my old roommate at college, first year. What's up, man? Theory is just an efficient. It's so weird that we're at the age that my son is now when I met you. Oh, that's crazy. Anyway, that's the way life goes, isn't it? Theory is just an efficient way to describe music. Descriptive versus prescriptive. Yeah, absolutely. Theory is just you just need to know what you're doing. It makes things so much easier. Like, I know I just talked about this before, and people say like, oh, I just feel my way through it. And, Hendrix didn't know what he was doing. Of course he knew what he was doing. He might not have been formally trained, or Paul McCartney is not formally trained, but you cannot write songs like Paul McCartney does without knowing music. He might know it in his own way. He maybe didn't study it formally, which he did study. He was really deep into it. So he knew what he knew, and that would expand and listen to other music. You can't write what they wrote and not know music in whatever way they knew it. And they knew it. So you see what I'm getting at. So the theory angle of this stuff is theory just it connects the dots really fast. It's just knowing your craft and knowing your instruments, knowing how to spell a sentence, knowing how to, you got to know it. Does it make you a better player? Yes, more quickly. It'll get you to where you want to be more quickly. How's that? I think, right. Richard and Sarah, do it, right. Does Michael Schenker stand out because he's so melodic? Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what I love about his phrasing, his tone. He's super melodic. Yeah, that's what I love about him. His lines, he writes the solos because you can hear that live. He repeats them, which is fine with me. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like and he has these lines that go across the bar line, and his phrasing is so great. So yeah, for me, that's what. Well, it's all those things about Schenker, but the melodic angle is so great. This is Lyle over in Psionic Audio. Theory Schmeary. You always have 1 note and 12 chance of hitting the right note. Exactly. You're right. I'm wrong. Jason Carter, triads will also help playing chord tones. Absolutely. You know, your triads, you're doing great. And music creation, regarding Hendrix, McCartney on the value of theory, love your statements. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, George Benson was not a schooled musician, but he knows the guitar. You cannot play that way. And I kind of got, like some people will, you get the responses from people saying that like, oh, it destroys your creativity or something like that. It's like, well, Miles Davis went to Juilliard. You look at John Coltrane, he was writing out all the giant steps chord changes, and if you look at all those drawings that he did of how they connect with the circle, with it looks like a spirograph, right? All these how they connect, and these are the common tones between all these things. So these guys were really thinking about it, and you can hear people progress. Like, you guys know that I'm a huge Eric Clapton fan, especially the early stuff. I mean, I like his playing now, but the Cream era. And if you listen to him play on Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, right? And he plays it on Layla and other sort of love songs. And he basically just plays a pentatonic scale over the whole thing. And there's a lot of chord changes on that. Like, C, E, A minor. So there's a bunch of chord changes in there. He doesn't really make any of them on that recording. You listen to him play that song over the last 20 or so years he did Unplugged. He's nailing all those chord changes. So he was probably at some point said, oh, he was very young on those Layla records. And, so it was really cool to see the evolution of him as well. And a lot of these guys, so working through these things. Old Dog, Jimmy could hear colors. I don't think he needed to study music theory. I don't agree with that at all. Jimmy practiced his ass off. Colors, schmullers. I'm sorry. He knew what he was doing. Is it a color? He played in cover bands. He knew that was a C major triad. He knew this pentatonic scale. He stole that from all the R&B stuff, the Motown stuff. And then he just built upon that. He knew that was C, G, and D, and E. So the colors thing, I don't know. I think that is that magical thinking. I really do. I don't think that that's the way it was. I think that he knew what he was doing in his own way. He knew they were trying. And people say, well, he couldn't read music. That's okay. That meaning he couldn't read notes on the page. But he knew what he was doing because that guy practiced his butt off. People talk about he was always playing guitar. Played in cover bands, played with Little Richard until he got fired for showing him up. He knew what he was doing. There's a friend of mine bought it. He owns, this is a wealthy guy, knew a chart for, I think it was, I knew it was, okay. He had extra talent. Okay, old dog. Sorry about that. You struck a nerve with me. Okay, sorry. I back off. Sorry. He had extra talent. Yes, but the extra talents were tapped and made more through the practice. Sorry. I just, sometimes people say like, oh, Jimmy just felt his way through it. And it just makes me freaking crazy. So my apologies, man. Thank you. It's like the little push button for me. You know what I mean? Because I think we talked about this. People often say to me, right, Jimmy knew what he was doing. He knew the charts. Check out his charts. So he knew what he was doing. And so, yes, old dog, I know what you're getting at. So there is, I'm a pro theory elk. Awesome. It's easy to find, yeah, like it's just, it's maybe in other kind of things too, maybe like art. If you look at Picasso, especially the Cubist stuff, and people are like, oh, anybody could do that. And you're like, well, nah. No, there's a whole theory behind that. And if you look at his earlier sketches and drawings and paintings, you certainly knew what he was doing. Whether it was he or anybody of modern painting, there was a period of them learning their craft. I mean, yeah, sometimes there's somebody pops up and they do something totally different. There's always the outlier that somebody can say, like, punk bands. I love the Sex Pistols and the Ramones and all that for a few tunes. But after a while, it gets a little simple for me. Sorry, I got off my own, getting on my own high horse there. Sorry, old dog. Magical thinking, that's it, right? Yeah. There's a thing that people I find it more in guitar, maybe because guitar, you don't need to know that much to get rolling, right? A pentatonic scale, you know how to play a blues, you're kind of rolling, you can learn some simple chords, and then you can start doing stuff. But if you really want to go any deeper, like the tradition of classical music, from day one, you're learning this stuff. Really, everybody's learning. Jazz musicians, like, it's just expected, that your stuff, right? If you don't know how to play with the changes, nobody wants to be around you. You know what I mean? And nobody cares if I went to music school. I never mentioned that. I don't even think about it anymore. Either you can play or you can't. Period. That's it. And whether you're musically educated, like if you take someone like George Benson, who's not formally educated, but I mean, geez, that guy knew what he was doing. Okay, Hendrix McCartney, new theory. They might not have used the same terms like Italian sixth and altered dominance and all those things, but yeah, certainly they knew exactly what was going on. Michael Cope, I don't think I've heard many good keyboard piano players not value the basic value of basic music theory. Very true. I think it's like guitar players. I think just because like you can pick it up and you can start ripping on a pentatonic scale. I think it's just the nature of the instrument, I'm thinking. And, did Eddie know what he was doing? And sometimes there's a lot of lying going on. Eddie is the king of not being truthful, about even how he set his amp and all those sort of things. So, sometimes there's a mystique created around these things. That's not a bash on Eddie. That's just Eddie being Eddie, like a greatest rock guitar player. Oh yeah, okay. Guitar Grandpa, what's up, man? How you doing? Not sure what it would mean to play inversions, like the third in the bass of Wind Cries Mirror. Yeah, exactly. So if I'm playing a C major triad, here's my root position, C, E, G. And here's my first inversion with the E in the bass. And here's the fifth in the bass. So those are my inversions. So there's my C chord, C, E, G. There's E, G, C. Well, one thing I do want to say also, by the way, what's really nice is that with a guitar, you don't need to know all this stuff yet. You can learn how to play tunes, and then the theory and the education angle of it can go hand in hand. So that's what I also love about the guitar. Like, you can learn how to play a solo to Red House and not know exactly what's going on just yet. And then as you start to kind of get deeper into it and you take an analytical view of it, you're like, oh, he's hitting the natural third and he sits on the flat seven. He does that kind of... It's kind of the first time when I was younger, I heard like a flat 7 in the tune, you know? And that was a real like, oh, that's a flat 7. Hear that sound. How do you count flurries? You mean like odd groups of notes and things? I hate that stuff. It's really difficult. I call it cramming, you know, it's like if you tried to write out a B.B. King solo, you can't really do it because the feel is so loose. And yes, somebody could do it. They could write out the notes, but if you lined up some of B.B. stuff kind of on a grid, it doesn't really fall exactly. So what's written out is a more close interpretation of the feel. Well, no, it's a loose interpretation. It's the notes, but not always really giving you the exact place of how he feels that notes and puts them in. So if you think about guys like Buddy Guy, who do a lot of flurries, they might throw in like a thing of 15 notes. He's just going for it and then ending on a downbeat. So when I have to write those things out, I used to transcribe for some guitar magazines back in the day, if Angus remembers me wanting to shoot myself in our apartment together, promising myself I'll never do that again. It was always that stuff that killed me. Like, that's 15 notes. So sometimes when you write those things out, you just go, that's 15 notes. I'm just going to put 16th notes with a 15 bar across the top. So I don't get too worried about that stuff. Is it true that Ritchie Blackmore and Steve Howe had the same guitar teacher? I don't know. I like to tell guitar customers buying their first guitar, this is Jason Carter, learn 3 chords and you can play a ton of songs. Absolutely true. And that's the great thing about the guitar. The entry point is very, very low, and then you should start to raise that bar. It used to be cool to say, I don't know what I'm doing back then. Yeah, Leo, that's totally true. And I think it's kind of, held over. And I just think it's some magic can be achieved when you don't know what you're doing. Yes, there are those things that'll happen. Somebody will come up with a riff and just kind of lay it down and they put it together as a band. Pink Floyd, sort of an example of that. I've heard like Nick Mason, a great podcast, The Raconteurs with Gary Kemp and Guy Pratt, who both play with Nick Mason and been playing with Gilmour and Pink Floyd. Pratt has been the bass player for Pink Floyd longer than Roger Waters has. And he was saying, in an interview with Nick Mason, he said, they usually say you got to have like 10,000 hours. And he goes, well, when we started the Pink Floyd, we had like maybe 50 hours. So a lot of their things were just experimenting and coming across things and falling into them. But that's part of the learning process. So there can be really, really cool things that happen as a result of that. But, Sid knew what he was doing. You can't just, in his own way, I mean, who knows? I don't know how much Sid knew, but anyway, I guess you understand what I'm saying. Right, exactly, right, Leo. Yes, sure, magic things happen, but you certainly can't rely on it. Thank you for crystallizing my thoughts eloquently. Yeah, you can't rely on it. They can happen, but yeah, definitely you cannot rely upon that. Just like, this is going to Lyle. When I've got my tour coming up in September, a friend of mine, Hermano, is letting me borrow an amp. Thank you, Hermano, and a cabinet. And I said, what's in the cabinet? He's got, it's a Greenback 25-watt speaker. I'm like, that's a 50-watt amp. That's going to blow. He's like, no, it should be fine. I'm like, and Lyle's like, you don't want to hope on a tour that the speaker won't blow. So same kind of thing. You can't rely on that speaker. If I put in a higher wattage speaker, I can rely upon that speaker. So yes, the speaker is on its way, and we're going to replace it. Jason Carter, listen to the podcast every week. Yeah, I love that podcast, The Raconteurs. It's really, really good. Chuck Keller, by most of the time people think, by the time most people pick up the guitar, they've already learned a ton of theory, just not from listening to music, just like learning to speak any language. Yeah, and a lot of times it's just putting a name to the thing that you've already heard a million times. Look at it that way. Thanks, Chuck. That's a cool way of looking at it too. Put it, figure out what's going on when you're playing Fortunate Son. Just popped in my head. One of the songs I used to teach early on. Kurt, I agree. It's good to have the foundation, especially to communicate with others. It's not magical, and it's why I am here relearning what I used to do more intuitively. Well, thanks. Yeah. And then the communication to other musicians. Yeah, imagine if on a gig and I say to someone, it's this chord. It's this chord. And they'd be like, dude, they altered? What? It's expected. And I remember I was at Guitar Center and my friend was there. I was working there and Billy Gibbons had just left, and Billy Gibbons is one of my absolute favorites. He's like, man, he showed me this chord. It's so crazy. It's got no name to it. Check out this crazy chord with no name, like B minor 7. It's B flat 7 flat 9 flat 13. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, everything's got a name to it. Everything's got a name to it. It's not crazy. It's maybe something you're not familiar with, but it's got a name to it. So if I want someone to play B7 flat 9 flat 13, and they played some sort of interesting voicing, I think he was doing this, that kind of thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's your flat 9, there's your flat 13. It's not rocket science. It's really quite simple. Eddie Van Halen was an excellent rhythm guitar player. Yeah, one of the best all-time rhythm guitar players. Eddie's feel. I mean, Eddie's just Eddie, class on his own, man. But his feel as a lead player, as a rhythm guitar player, his swing, it's crazy. I never really got too into Eddie as a player. That was really kind of one of the reasons why, as I got a little older, I realized, oh yeah, it's just, I didn't want to devote all that time trying to do that. But he's, yeah, Eddie. This is SB Nesbitt. What do you think your best course that people might be overlooking or underappreciating? I know it sounds kind of, I'm always talking about my courses on JM Guitar Lessons. That's where everything is now. There's still stuff over on TrueFire, but this is where everything's going to be moving forward. I think the mastering the major triads and mastering the minor triads courses, the triads courses, I don't think they're overlooked. They've sold well, so I think people are getting it. But simplifying how you would use those things. My latest course that I really, really like a lot, and apparently you guys do too, thank you, is the melodic soloing one, talking about triads, outlining them as you're soloing. I think those things are really important because there's lots of blues stuff out there, and I'm not negating it in my blues courses, which I think are quite good. I just think there's a lot of that, so I think maybe if you want to learn about hitting the right notes and thinking about how to make your chord changes, I think those courses might be the way to maybe do it, I think. Eddie was classic champion. Yeah, those guys knew what they were doing. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think improvisers hope to make magic happen every gig, but it usually doesn't, but you keep chasing that dragon for sure. And also, as I talk about in my melodic soloing course, when I talked about last week, when David Gilmour composed the solo to Comfortably Numb, he composed the solo to Comfortably Numb, and he worked through it. Also, when I was talking about preparing for my tour, going through my tunes, even though I wrote them, I'm still going to practice playing over them, so I'm in the game. Like my head is, I know how to play over my tunes at a better level when I keep on playing through them, and I might find something new and different. Is there anywhere I should start to get in your courses? I'd say I'm intermediate. You need to get a good foundation to build on. If you're talking about the JM Guitar Lessons sites, I would say the major triads course. I think it's very accessible, and for any level, and especially the intermediate. I wish I had learned my triads earlier on. I didn't. And everybody was always saying to me all the time, I learn your triads. Man, triads are everything. Know your triads. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I know my triads. And I realized, no, I did not know my triads. So I would say that would be the one, mastering major triads. If you go in some of the videos, you probably see there's still a sale link. I have a lot of sales on these. But thank you for asking, Reggie. I really appreciate it. The triad courses are pure magic. Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Michael, as well. Have your old TrueFire 50 blues licks on DVD. You should look and read two videos short. They're fantastic licks. Thanks, old dog. Yeah, that video is 18 years old. I was a lot younger and had a full head of hair and all that, and not gray. I'm going to do another lick course coming up. I have the foundational blues licks course on my JM guitar lessons. That's very similar. That's very, very similar to that course, but I think better because I play better and I teach better, and it's 4K as opposed to 720. Not that I didn't like that course. This is Lyle from Psionic Audio. When I've taught guitar to people, I've started with diatonic chords. Learn those, learn how to build them in every key, easy on guitar, then relative, then in parallel keys. Absolutely, yeah. It's a great way to break it down, for sure. It's amazing how few people ever learn that from magazines and YouTube tutorials. Yeah, I mean, the basic things, like I'm saying here, just know your diatonic chords for any key. I mean, you can look at a piece of music and go, oh, I'm in a key of G. Oh, that chord's not in the key of G. I must change keys. Well, how do I get that note? Well, if I know how to spell my triads, then I don't have to worry about what key I'm in. I just play the right note because I know if it's a C chord, I can play a C, E, and G, and I'm good to go. Scales are overrated in one way. Scales are important, but growing up, I had this conversation with many of my friends in the guitar educational business, that a lot of rock magazines in the 80s were my kind of formative years for this stuff. They were talking a lot about scales all the time. Now, scales are important, but I would say ultimately that arpeggios and chord tones. So when I say arpeggios, I don't mean being able to play an arpeggio fast, meaning knowing what notes are in your chord and how to play them and where they lay on the fingerboard. That's more important because those are the magic notes. And then the scale tones are from your scale in between those notes. I talk about that a lot in a simpler sense over on the melodic soloing course, which is 60% off still if you don't have that one. Okay, so I gotta go meet some friends. I gotta walk a dog in this blaring heat and then go meet those guys for dinner. Any closing questions? Once again, thanks for everybody for being here. There's my list. If you click on that link, it will take you over to that link. You just got to sign up for YouTube freebies. It's free. If you haven't already kind of joined my web. Oh, here's Mr. Softy. You hear it? Here's Mr. Softy. I don't know if you hear it or not. All right. Okay, cool. So as BB just put in there, I have my mastering major triads course right there, and the mastering minor triads course is 55% off. I've also kept the link for the melodic soloing course at 60% off. I'm really happy with that course. I'm happy with all my courses, but I like that one a lot. It's fun. I had a lot of fun making that one because it was maybe a little more. It was different than some of my other courses. I really enjoyed it. Guys, thanks so much for everybody being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Please hit the like and subscribe, as the whole cliche goes. I think most of you guys are my normal people here, but more people watch my videos than subscribe, percentage-wise. So it really helps get the videos spread out, or it spread the word of the videos, build the channel, which is very difficult to do. Very difficult to build a YouTube channel, and that's one of the ways, if you dig the stuff, to help do it. All right, everybody, I will see you live. I got a video coming out on Saturday on something I got to think about, and I will see you all live next week. Goodbye. Thanks, guys. And thanks, Beavy.